Okay, we are live. Good morning. Good morning. Thanks for coming. Good morning and welcome to the Daycare Q&A Show. I'm your host, Adrienne Bradley, and thank you for joining me here this morning. It is March 20th, 2024, and this is episode 33 of the Daycare Q&A Show. I've actually been kind of on a hiatus for a couple of weeks. I had some conflicts in my schedule, but I'm glad to be back live today. So if you are joining me for the first time, welcome. And if you are coming back, welcome back. And if you could just send me some hearts and likes so I can see you. Sometimes I have a hard time seeing this dashboard, which is why I have my laptop open over here, so I don't want to miss anything. So just in case, I have this other screen going. So hopefully everything will work out today. But anyway, I'm glad to be back live. Let's see. I'm looking at my notes. So first, I always start with some housekeeping. Today my dogs are inside, but they are pretty quiet. They were asleep a moment ago. I only say that because I have one dog that will bark with any noise at all. So I'm hoping he stays quiet and he doesn't startle me or you, but I'm just telling you that just in case. Yeah, so they are inside. Secondly, I always start off by saying that, giving a bit of a disclosure that the things that are discussed here or the opinions that I might give or advice are based on my own experience or experience of colleagues that I'm close with and their experience. And but this, I know your business is your business, and if it doesn't work for you, then then just disregard. Okay, it's probably meant for someone else, so just take what works and leave the rest. That's what we do here. We just kind of give you, my goal is to give you another opinion or another viewpoint on something that you might be going through or that you might go through in the future, so that you have another perspective maybe that you can draw from if you find yourself in certain situations. Yeah, so take what works and feel free to leave the rest, okay? And third, I want to remind you, if you have a question and you're joining me live, please feel free to put the question in the comments. And if you're catching this on replay on our YouTube channel, or if you're catching this live, replay on Facebook, and you have a question, go ahead and put it in the comments, and when I see it, I will come back in and answer it. You don't have to wait to submit a question to me as well. Okay, so let's see. Last, if you do have to leave early, I have been leaving these lives up here on Facebook for a while because I haven't had a chance to upload them to our channel over on YouTube, but that is a project that I'm going to be tackling. But until I get caught up, the live will live here and you can catch the replay here. So if you have to dip out, I know you're busy, you can come back later and watch the rest. And as I said, we do have a channel on YouTube, so I would love it if you would consider going over there and maybe binge watching some of the old episodes or catching some episodes that you think might pertain to you and your business. And while you're there, if you would hit the thumbs up and consider subscribing, that would be great. I would love that. Okay, so let's talk about what's going on in the Thriving Childcare universe. So first, today, I want to say that this episode is sponsored by our planner. Behind me, you can see the striped version of our planner. It's called the Provider Planner and Organizer, and it is our luxury planner just for childcare providers. And right now, you can get, I believe you can get it on with free shipping. It actually comes in a number of different variations. You can get it in the hardback version. You can get it in the softback version. You can also get it as an ebook. And you can get it, our newest version is a digital format, so you could use it on an app like Good Notes, and I think there might be a couple of other apps, but you can use it as a digital planner as well. And just remember that the planner is undated, so even though it's the middle of March and it's not the first of the year anymore, you can still get your planner and use it for a full year when you get it, because it is undated. So go over and check out the Provider Planner and Organizer. There is a link in the show notes where you can go over and check it out. And I believe you can get 20% off with it right now. But go over and check it out. Okay? Okay. Oh, and so yesterday, I had the pleasure of being the first guest. This was not the first episode, but I was the first guest on my colleague Erica Sicozio's podcast. It's called the Childcare Director's Chair. And Erica, if you've been following the show for a while, she's actually been a guest host on this program. But I was I felt so privileged that she asked me to be her first guest that she had on her show. She has a number of episodes. She's been around for a minute now, but I was actually the first guest. So I'll let you know when that airs, and I'll drop a link here on the page. But stay tuned for that, okay? And I think I'll come back when she does. When it does drop, I'll come back and I'll leave a link in the show notes on YouTube when this episode is uploaded over on our channel on YouTube, okay? Because I would love it if you would catch that and let me know what you think. So yeah, and this week on the blog, I don't know if I told you, I am the author, the founder of Thriving Childcare, and the author of our blog over on thrivingchildcare.com. And this week on the blog, I wrote about unlocking childcare success. And I did leave a link to the blog post in the show notes, so you can go over and check that out as well. I'm sorry, I should have said I am trying to recover from a head cold, so my voice might sound a little raspy or a little scratchy, and I hope I don't get in a coughing fit, because this is sticking around. I don't know if anybody else has been sick yet this year, but this one's sticking with me. It seemed very minor, but it's not going away, so it's a little irritating. But anyway, that's why my voice might sound funny. So anyway, I left a link to the blog post in the notes here, and remember, you can go over and either read it, or our blog posts also have an audio that you can listen to, so maybe at nap time, or when you have some free time, or maybe when you're driving around on your errands, you can get caught up and listen to the blog post over there on audio. Okay, so let's see. Lastly, for the news is I am so excited. I'm so excited because we are relaunching our membership, and it's really a re-grand opening of our membership. We're actually doing a whole makeover with a whole new name, and just bringing in some new energy into our membership, and I am so excited. I still can't give you all the details because it's not quite open yet, so stay tuned to this channel for that, but it'll be happening really soon. And if you want to get in on the renaming of the membership and help us rename the membership, then I didn't remember to put that link in the show notes, but I will come back and drop that link where you can go over and help us rename our membership. So yeah, so stay tuned for that. That is coming very soon, but next week I will have big news about that. Okay? All right. So this morning we're going to get into actually one question that I am going to devote quite a bit of time to, because it is a question that is rather common in our space. So I'm going to get into that, but before I do, I usually go to the planner. I have it right here. I usually go to the provider, planner, and organizer and see if there are any observances that are happening this week, any fun observances that we can maybe create a curriculum or a project or my dogs. I hope that is not my garden. Hold on, I'll be right back. I'm sorry. I never have had to do that, but my dogs will run out, and if the gardener's here, and one time the gardener left the gate open, and I didn't even know the dogs were gone. So it was a mess. So I had to shut the door just in case, because I think I do hear the gardener. Okay, so observances that maybe we can turn into a curriculum or a project or even a fun meal inspiration or something. However, the only thing that's really happening this week is that we're in today is the first full day of spring. Yesterday was technically the first day of spring, but today is the first full day of spring. So, what have you got planned for spring? I am hoping that with the beginning of spring, that the rainy season is waning down. I hope. We have gotten quite a bit, I would say more than our share here in California or Southern California of rain this past few months, and I'm ready to let that go. I know we need the rain because we've had droughts in years past, but we more than made up for it. And yeah, so let me know in the comments what you've got, what you're looking forward to for spring. But I'm looking forward to some warmer weather and being able to get out and enjoy my weekends a little bit more and do some things and get ready for the summer, which is really my favorite season. So anyway, so let me know what you're looking forward to in the comments. I would love to hear about it. Hi, Denitra. She said she forgot it was Daycare Q&A day. Well, I'm glad you're here. I'm so wrapped up in this springtime weather. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was just talking about. Exactly. Denitra, I know she's a gardener. She loves to plant, I don't know, I guess they're probably flowers, probably. Don't ask me. I am a certified plant assassin. I cannot. That is one thing I cannot do, is keep a plant alive. My husband can. I can't. So I stay away. And I do my best. She said she's pulling weeds. She loves pulling weeds. Okay. The weeds would probably die if I touched them. So that is not in my wheelhouse. That is not in my talent pool of talent. But anyway, I digress. So anyway, so spring is here. Let me know what you got planned for spring. I'm going to get into the question in a moment, but I do start off each episode with a question that I have for you. And this week is a fun one because I know, I can't remember how much they said it was. I was listening to the news this morning, but both the lotteries, both I guess the National Lottery and the California Lottery are at all-time highs or at near highs. And so it got me to thinking, which I will be running out to get some lottery tickets later. I don't know if you play the lottery, but if you won the lottery, would you continue running your childcare business? I would love to know. I put this on the page earlier today, so I can't wait to see what the responses are for that. Hey, Deborah! I forgot to tell you that I'm live today. Deborah Hurley's joining us. Thank you, Deborah. And she said, yes, she would continue running her childcare. Well, bravo. Bravo. I am not going to lie. I would be gone. I I would be gone like Carmen Sandiego. Do you guys remember that? She said I'd have a ramped up daycare. You know what? And it would probably be fabulous because you would have all the resources to make it everything you want. And Denitra Scott says you already know. I'm not kidding, you guys. I would leave a note for my family. I might leave a note for my husband. Okay, I would be gone like, is there a word that rhymes with gone? I would be gone like Carmen Sandiego. You would have to find me. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. And especially if it was the type of money that they're talking about with this lottery, the girl's gone. I got too much traveling I want to do. Deborah's laughing. I'm serious though. I'm laughing, but in all seriousness, I am not kidding. I would grab the dogs. I don't even know if I would take my car. I don't even know. I would probably leave that. She said, gone like John. I like that one, Denitra. Yes, gone like John. It should be a female name. But whatever. Okay. So let me know. Denitra and Deborah have answered for themselves, but let me know if you won the lottery, if you would continue with your childcare business. You know, the funny thing about it is not too many cycles ago, it was a large lottery, and the 2 winning tickets were purchased. They thought it was purchased by maybe the same person in my city, actually around the corner from me, at a gas station around the corner from me. And I don't know if they have to in California, they have to say who won, but I don't know if they've come forward or if I missed it or whatever, but you know, they won around the corner. It was quite upsetting to me, to be honest. All right, let me get into this question today, because I do want to spend some time on this because I have a lot to say about it. I hope that you will chime in, Deborah and Denitra, please chime in. But today I want to, let me read the question, and then I want to give you my perspective. Okay. So it says, hey Adrienne, I'm facing a tough situation and I could really use your advice. What should a childcare owner do if they find themselves unable to pay their assistants or staff on a scheduled payday? It's a stressful situation and I want to handle it responsibly and ethically as possible. Any insights or suggestions you can provide would be greatly appreciated. Thanks a bunch. So, I have to say, I have been on both sides of this, okay? I've shared here before that I used to work in corporate America many moons ago. So if I've been in the childcare field for about 25 years now, then this would be 25 plus years ago, right? But anyway, I remember working and having friends who worked at different industries and different businesses. And I remember them sharing with me that on a Friday would be payday, okay, it would be a gamble as to whether or not they were going to get their paycheck. And I was like, what do you mean? And I remember there were a couple of different scenarios, but the one that I distinctly remember was whatever friend this was, she told me that on payday they would write out the checks, but the person who needed to sign the checks, I don't know if that was the owner or if it was another person who had that responsibility, would more often than not be there. Meaning the checks could not be signed, so they weren't valid, so they didn't get their checks. And I remember thinking, what? And I know I probably tried to conceive of what was up there. Did they just not have the money? Maybe years later now, I'm thinking maybe their cash flow was messed up. Whatever it was, they couldn't afford to pay their people on time. And I remember thinking, you're better than me, because I would be out of there. And Now, I was a young mother at the time. I was a young single mom. So in reality, I can kind of see my friends sticking it out because, you just can't abandon your job, but you're not getting paid anyway. Maybe they got paid on the following Monday. I'm not sure. I hope so. But that couldn't happen to me too many times for me not to be making efforts to get out of that situation. Because I can remember back then. Now, remember, this is before you could get even a payday loan. There were no advances in your bank account, or none of that existed back then. I'm talking about a long time ago, okay? 20, 30 years ago, okay? So I was waiting on that paycheck, and I can safely say my friends were as well. And so for it to not come on the very day that you anticipated and you needed to hit, you probably needed it the week before, to be honest, at least a few days before. But okay, so payday's here and you're still not getting paid. Yeah, no, I would have, as soon as I could, bounced. I would have been gone. All right, now, and I see some comments coming. I'm coming to you. But years later, as the employer now, okay, so now I'm running my childcare business. I have staff, I have an assistant, and I can remember, most childcare providers can understand this, that I would have an enrollment that was like a roller coaster. I could be full, no spots, waiting list at one point during the year, and another point during the year have it dip down, and I've got 5 spots open, okay? And that would happen to me because I remember one time when I had children that were all about the same age. And although it was great for, projects and curriculum and, teaching, it also kind of set up the scenario where they would all probably be leaving around the same time, aging out of the program. So I would have that happen to me several times, right? And anyway, one of these times I had an assistant, and by this time I knew what would happen, right? If I let her go, because the enrollment was low, and then I started to get clients, which typically, it might have taken a minute, but the clients would come. Then I would have to find a whole new assistant, and by that time I'm probably overwhelmed because now I have more kids than I felt like I could manage, and I just didn't want to go through that. And so, do you know what I did? And I don't know if I was thinking that this was what I was doing at the time, but I went out and got a part-time job. And it was in the evenings. It was a couple of hours after the childcare closed. Remember, I didn't have a huge enrollment, so I would go, and I can't remember if my assistant would see the last child out because I was already gone. But I was working that part-time job to pay for my assistant, okay? So that I could retain her and not have to, in a minute, when my enrollment got a boost and got back up, have to go and find another assistant. Because I don't have to tell you, anybody who's had assistants or staff, and you have good assistants or staff, you really don't want to let them go. You really don't want to have to go through that process of finding them, and especially, the background checks and the training and the onboarding and all this kind of stuff. And I just knew I didn't want to go through that. And so I made the sacrifice. And it might sound crazy to you, and now that I think about it, it sounds a little crazy to me, but I did that. I did that to retain my staff. She was good, and I wanted to keep her. Okay. And before I get to the comments, I think it was 2 days ago, my friend Latrice, she is the Childcare Chick on Instagram. Please go follow her. She's an amazing woman. She's just a dynamo. Her energy alone will inspire you and really get you going. But she's wonderful. And anyway, she was talking about how she's owned several centers, And she was actually broadcasting in her center that day, and she was talking about this situation. And this was the topic, and she was saying that the one thing that she did not do over the 17 years that she's been in business, that she's been in childcare, was not pay her staff on time. Okay? Okay, the dog's going to get started now. Rooney? She said that doesn't mean she didn't have times where she didn't have the money, but her staff didn't know it. She said if she had to go put it on a credit card, if she had to ask a resource in her family, like her immediate family, to float her a loan, whatever she needed to do, if she needed to go into her reserves or something like that, that's what she did, because she did not want to get to that place with her staff. And I can understand it. Like I told you, I went and I worked a part-time job so that I could afford that. I could afford to keep my staff. Now, this is not to say that I don't understand, and I'm sure Latrice would echo this as well, being in that situation. But you have, from my perspective, as an employer, you have a responsibility to your staff, to your employees. And I think sometimes we can forget. I just told you about being that single mom and needing that paycheck to arrive days before it was scheduled to arrive. So if it had not come on the day that it was supposed to come, that would have been a tremendous hardship for me. And groceries, gas, and this is back when gas and groceries were hardly what they are now, okay? It's crazy expensive now just to live, let alone live in California. Don't even get me started. But I think that we might get in a situation, or this might be years ago for us, where we were in those situations and we can't relate anymore and understand. But beyond you being able to understand what that person might be going through, who is your employee and is looking and needing that check, it is also your responsibility to keep the contract that you've made with this employee. And that is to pay them on scheduled pay dates. Now, the other thing I want to say about it is, I think, and I've said this to a close friend of mine many, many times, that I think that there are people who just lack empathy. They do not have it in them. And I'm not saying that they're trying to be malicious, but they don't seem to have the ability to put themselves in someone else's situation. Because even if you were to go to your, and I had this one time when I had to go to my employee, and this is why years later I got that part-time job to save that other one, but one of my first employees, I couldn't pay her on a pay date, and I could only give her a portion. And I could see in her face that it was going to be stressful for her, because even though I was telling her that I was going to pay her the rest maybe the following Monday or the following week or something, you know, you don't know what they need to go pay. You don't know if they're going to be able to get grace from whatever needs to be paid in their life. You know, most of us don't go to work, just to get out of the house. Okay? Most of us need a paycheck to live. And again, I think that some of us either have gotten so far away from being in that situation, or just lack the natural ability to have empathy for the other person that might be going through that situation, that we just lose touch and we just don't understand, or we can't relate to how big of a deal it is to not get paid on time. Okay? And what was I going to say? I was going to say something else about not being paid on time, but I see it as a responsibility. I see it as a responsibility, and what that means is, I'll tell you, this is a recent, very recent story. I was just talking to my daughter in the last day and a half, and she had a situation. She just came down here and was visiting last week, and she went and saw friends, and she did a bunch of activities, and she's doing really well for herself. She's doing good, but she just had a car issue yesterday, very much yesterday. I'm just still sorting this out right now. Anyway, she's concerned about the strain that it's going to put on her finances because it's going to have to be a repair. And, you know, as a mom, I'm going to support her through this situation in the next day and a half. But then I'm going to double back. I'm going to circle back and say, now listen, it's fine for you to have all the finances to finance your life. I think you're doing great. But you also need to have that emergency fund, because you never really get a heads up for an emergency. When we were talking about the car, we were saying, oh, you just drove down here, there wasn't a problem, you were driving around, and then you drove back just, a day and a half ago? It's really odd that this happened. Well, it's not that the car is going to tell you, oh, I'm about to break down. You know what I mean? And that's true for any emergency, even in this situation. So there could be things that come out of nowhere. You need to set up a reserve for yourself. So I'm going to go to the comments, and I'm going to come back to that reserve issue, because like I said, I can see it from both sides. I can see it as an employee. I can see it as the employer. And on both sides of this, you need to have those emergency funds. You just do. Everything costs more. Everything costs more. But let me go to the comments, because I saw a bunch of comments. Let me go back up. Deborah Hurley said, I could not pay my staff. She said, I could not pay my staff. I would reevaluate the numbers of daycare kids to only have myself and no assistants. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I think the first time when I said that I couldn't pay my assistant, I was brand new to having an assistant, to having staff, and I hadn't budgeted or set up the finances to support that. Because ideally, and you guys can come and tell me what you think, but ideally, I would say you need to not only have that reserve, but be a cycle or 2 or 3 ahead as far as the payroll goes. In other words, you've got this payroll and you've got 3 more in the hole. That would probably be the best case scenario, if not more, right? Deborah says, a staff has to be paid on time like us. Now I remember what I was going to say, Deborah. Thank you for that. Because when I was saying a moment ago about how I feel like sometimes people lack the natural ability to empathize with the other person. In other words, they can't seem to flip the script and see it from that other person's point of view. Let me hit you with this. Because I know a lot of us have found ourselves in this situation. But what if a parent didn't pay you on time? Can I tell you how many times that happened to me? That's my story. That's the whole tuition thing, and this is one of the reasons why I have so many tuition-based products in the shop, is because it was such an issue for me in my business. It was draining the life out of me. The passion, the stress level was up here, okay, because of that issue, because I wasn't getting paid on time. I told you about the story of going to the bank 5 times a week because people were paying me all different times of the week. Can I tell you what my finances looked like? They were insane. They were stupid. And going back and forth, up and back and forth to the bank, which was not around the corner. This bank was quite a distance away. Excuse me. Going and talking to a teller, and her telling me that her sister or sister-in-law, I can't remember, had a childcare, but that they were closing their childcare. And I was like, really? Why? Why are they closing their childcare? And she said, well, she's losing her house. And I was like, what? And she said, yeah. because the parents didn't pay her on time, and this had become an issue for a long period of time. And she had probably let it go or tried to accommodate them, and it got to the point where her mortgage wasn't getting paid. Okay? So imagine if parents aren't paying you on time. What does that do to your finances? What does that do to your business? What does that do to your cash flow? And how can you not relate that to now your staff? It's the same thing. It's the same thing. You wouldn't like it if that parent wasn't paying you based on the contract and the agreement that they made with you. So you need to understand and have empathy for the staff member that is relying on you to get paid, to support their family, to pay their bills, to whatever. I don't care if they're a student and they don't have any bills or kids or whatever. They've done a job and they deserve to be paid on time. And that's what Deborah said. Absolutely. Let's see. Deborah says, maybe have an account build up if like a month's staff pay in there for reserve. Exactly. So she said, maybe have a account that's built up with a month of staff pay. I would go further, Deborah. I would say, considering the times, considering we just came out of a pandemic and all the havoc that did to so many industries, start with a month. Start with having a month in reserve, okay? And I'm going to get into this reserve issue in a moment. Start with having a month and then build from there. I would say if you can get to having a full quarter, you don't have to worry. You do not have to worry. And it's the same thing with our businesses. If we can build up a reserve that we use not just for payroll, but to have a reserve there for us should other things happen in the business. And you can build that up. You can build that up over time, and there's techniques that you can use to build it up really fast. Which, like I said, I'll get into that in a second. Let me finish reading the comments here. Denitra Scott says, okay, but how would you handle it in that moment? Well, I told you what I did. I excuse me. Let me get some water. In that moment, like I said, this happened to me early on in my business. I didn't have any family that I could go to. I didn't have any reserve. And I had to fall on the sword and say to my staff member, I don't have it. I will have it next week. And whatever date I gave it to her. But I tell you what, I do remember something, Denitra. I do remember after giving her what I had to give to her on that day, I do remember going and getting a payday loan. I did go get a loan. And I took it over to her house and I gave her the rest. So in that moment, that's what I did. I found a resource. And because I could understand. I could understand being in that situation. Now, I don't know. Denitra, you've been a director. You've also had home-based programs as well. I don't know if you've ever found yourself in that situation. And if you haven't, what would you do? Because I want to hear your perspectives. Deborah has said, to maybe reevaluate. Well, first of all, to build up this reserve. So if you're just starting out and you don't have staff, it still would not be a bad idea for you to build up a reserve for yourself, for your business. Let's put it that way, for your business. Because just like I just was talking about the roller coaster of enrollment that many of us go through, having that reserve gives you freedom. It gives you freedom to enroll your ideal client and not feel like you've got to just enroll the next person that reaches out to you no matter what, no matter if, even if they need longer hours or they need services that you don't provide because you need that client. It gives you a cushion, just like any emergency fund would, right? It gives you a cushion so that you don't have to feel pressed that you have to do that. Because when your cash flow's down or you're cash poor or you're broke, you make decisions, erratic decisions, because you are stressed. You're stressed in the moment to have to make those decisions. So if you're just starting out, or even if you're not starting out, and you've been in the game for a while, or you are a seasoned provider and this has not been a strategy of yours, I would suggest, like my friend Latrice said, to do whatever you need to do to make that payroll, but then make sure you're building up a reserve. And in the shop, we actually have a emergency reserve fund guide that will guide you through the very simple, effective, and some fast ways to build up that reserve. You can do it, and do it very quickly. And just imagine knowing that you have this cushion. Imagine it, knowing if you had that cushion when COVID hit, when the pandemic hit. Okay, I'm not saying that you may not have struggled through that period, because it was a prolonged period, especially here in California and in the states that shut down. It put strains on businesses and finances, and a lot of businesses across many industries went out of business because of it. But if you had no funds, you were immediately stressed. And you might not have had the option of remaining in business almost immediately. So that's what having a reserve does. The emergency reserve fund, and I will come back and leave a link to that in the show notes so that you can go over and check it out. It is effective. I've had many people use this to build up a reserve for their business, okay? And the thing about an emergency reserve fund is, like I said, it's not exactly like what you would recognize as an emergency fund for your family. It can be used to expand your business. It can be used for several different things when it comes to your business. And that's one of the first things that you go through in the process is deciding the rules and the parameters around accessing this fund. In other words, what are you allowing this? What are you saying that these funds are allowed to be used for? Okay, it's a little different when it comes to a family emergency fund, but the principle is the same. Okay, for building it up, and but there are rules around this business reserve fund. Okay, let me go to the comments. I see some more comments there. Denisha said, I guess she's talking about when she was a director. She said, we had to be honest with our team. We paid what we could, and we paid the difference with interest and fees. Yeah, that's another thing. That's what I was alluding to before when I was saying, you don't know that just coming to your staff and saying, I don't have it, being upfront and honest with them and saying, excuse me, that you will get them the difference when you can. You don't know if on the other side of that, whoever they needed to pay is going to be as forgiving and give them as much grace as you would expect them to give to you. You don't know that. You don't know if they're going to be hit with interest and fees because now they can't meet their obligations because you didn't meet your obligation to them. So by Denitra saying that she told them, hey, we will pay whatever interest or fees that you accrue because of this, I think is really, really a good practice. I mean, aside from trying not to get into that situation and not to get into it again, it is what you need to do. Okay? Because we haven't talked about how the staff might start looking at you. Okay? Wondering if, oh, is this going to happen again? What about next week when Friday comes? Is she going to be able to pay me? Maybe I should start looking for another job because I can't be dealing with stuff like this. I can't. So it can have more effects than you might be willing to deal with. So, okay, so let me read some more comments. Okay. Denisha Scott said, in 2011, when the government shut down, we ran out of funds because we weren't getting any subsidized payments. Aha. Yes, that's another thing. Because we know, if you watch the news, you know that they were just about in that same situation this past week, I want to say. And they keep putting these patches on these government, what is it, the what do they call it? I forget what it's called in a moment. But they keep putting patches on this that just kind of kicks the can down the road. In other words, in 3 months, they're going to have to address this again. And what can happen is what she said. You don't realize that affects the subsidized programs. So now, if your subsidy payments are the bulk of your cash flow, then you can imagine if that happens, what kind of strain that is going to put on your business income, right? So these are things, you know, as a business owner, especially as an employer, and you're an employee of your business as well. So as the business owner, what can you do to mitigate that so you don't get in that situation and you don't put your staff in that situation, and you don't, remember I told you the lengths that I took to retain that good staff member at the time. You don't want to have to do something like that. You don't want to have to go out and get a part-time job, but I did it. I was willing to do it. So you don't even really want to have to go out and get a loan if you don't have to, but if you do, right? Denisha says, but I agree. It taught me that you can't ever have enough cash reserves. You can't. You just can't. And you know, I would get in years past, I've had people ask me, but what if I never use the cash reserves? You can use, and like I said before, these funds you allocate, you decide the rules, the parameters around using these funds. But to always have some reserve is the best case scenario, because it just reduces the stress and strain on your business. It has, it's just the best case scenario. This is the best case scenario. Deborah Hurley says, yeah, once subsidized payments was 2 months behind. Exactly. And even, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember, because I have had a few children over the years that were on subsidized payments, and even the initial payments, and I counsel other, I'm a coaching counselor to new providers, and I have told them, they've got in their mind, they've got this grand plan that having subsidized kids was going to be the way they went, and they wouldn't have to worry about it because the kids are on these government programs, so it's like guaranteed funds. And some of the, I've had to tell some of these providers, well, first of all, even the first payment could be 30 to 60 days out. They're usually behind on their payment. They're usually not, they don't usually pay the month that we're in. Am I right, you guys? Let me get some water. My throat is so dry. Oh my gosh, I'll be glad when it's cold. It's over. Deborah says, if you don't use reserves, then you just pay it into your retirement. Bam. Exactly. And that's what the guide will walk you through. You make the discernment on what these funds, like I said, are going to be used for. But yeah, you can never have enough. And imagine having this lump sum, and maybe you recycle that into your retirement every year. You put it in a 401k. Well, it wouldn't be a 401k for us, but you know what I mean. And you set up this reserve fund, and maybe every year you continue to build that reserve fund, and then you put a portion of that into your retirement every year. So see, it is just a benefit all the way around. And yeah, Denitra Scott and Deborah Hurley says, yep, they're usually 1 month behind, and Denitra Scott said even 40 days in arrear. So if you are looking for that payment, just like your employee, I might add, you're looking for that payment to be paid to fund your payroll or whatever, you this is a month behind. So you have got to have those funds now. And I know I'm not explaining that right, but you know what I mean. It's not, you're not going to have access to those funds immediately. Let me put it to you like that. It is at least a month behind. So when I told that to that soon-to-be provider, she was shocked. And I was like, yeah, see, because, and we didn't know this until we got into childcare, that, these different things were going to happen. That's one of the reasons why it's a really good thing to network and talk to other providers to find out what their experiences are. That's kind of the inspiration for this show, is to hear what somebody else went through. Not to say that you have to do what they did, or that you're even going to be in the same situation as them, but to just be aware that this is what can happen. I've had colleagues that haven't had near the experiences or the adventures that I've had in childcare, and they didn't have a crazy tuition problem like I had, and that's fine. But I also didn't have some of their experiences as well. But yeah, so getting back, you need to, and I'm going to say need. I've said at the top of the show, it is your business. You make the decisions for your business. But you are doing your business a disservice. You're doing yourself a disservice by putting yourself and your business in a position where your finances are strained in the month that you're in. So what that means is there needs to be some kind of reserve. Going back to what Deborah Hurley said, at least a month. And in the guide, in the Emergency Reserve Fund for Childcare, in that guide, it will walk you through several different ways where you can turbocharge your savings and your reserve fund, okay? To the point where by the end of the quarter, I'll just say, by the end of the quarter, you would have a healthy reserve. You then don't have the stressors of knowing you're going to run out of money in the month that you're in. You don't have the stressor of if a parent walks in today and says, oh, we're moving to, I had one of my favorite families moved to Tennessee. We're moving to Tennessee, and we're selling our house, and we're moving to Tennessee, and yeah, we're leaving. You don't have the stress of going, I can't make my house note next month. That's what I've just been told. I can't make my house note next month. No. You have a reserve so you can continue to pay yourself, you can continue to pay your staff, and your marketing. Hopefully you're marketing all the time, because I've said that before too, that you need to be marketing all the time, because like I said, I don't know if I said this in the last episode or not, but I had a friend, and I remember saying, it was at some point in my business, and we were on a short weekend vacation with them, with my friend and her husband, and I told her that I was putting up an ad for looking for new families, all right, and new clients. And she said, you You want more kids? And I was like, they don't stay. I don't have a college program. They don't stay from infancy through college. You've got to remember. And she laughed because she's not in the business. So, okay, she's not thinking about it. But I said, look, every client that I have, excuse me, it's almost an hour. That's probably as long as I can talk because my throat is so dry. Every client, excuse me, every client that I have is going to leave at some point. That's just a fact. It's just common sense, but it's a fact. So I'm going to have to replenish those clients. And marketing all the time sets in motion the ability to do that. One more. I'm going to read the rest of the comments, and then I'm going to have to go because I'm going to keep coughing. Deborah Hurley says, I need that reserve resource. I will definitely drop the link, and I'll send it to you too, Deborah, because I can't tell you. I created that so far into my childcare journey. I needed that from the beginning because it would have allowed me so much peace of mind. I can't even tell you how. Remember, I was just saying that client said they were moving to Tennessee. That was really a real situation. I wasn't stressed at that point, but there were many times when clients would say, "Oh, we're moving, or we just bought a house, or we going to put our child in the preschool with their sibling or whatever," and I would go to bed stressed out because now my cash flow was going to take a hard dive, at least for a period of time until I could find whatever client. And I can tell you probably the problem clients that I had over the years was just because I felt like I had to take them. This takes that scenario off the table. You don't have to. Okay? You are solid. Okay? And you decide how much of reserve you want to create for your business, and you decide what those funds will be used for. Maybe you're going to use a portion of those funds to buy new equipment for your outdoor space. Okay? I don't know about you, but I looked up one year and I was like, oh my gosh, this stuff is so old. I because I saw it every day, it didn't resonate with me then. This stuff is getting beaten up and it looks pretty sad and old, and I don't know what happened on that day, but I looked out and I was like, oh, this stuff is sun faded, some of the stuff looks broken or whatever. You need to replenish these things over time. You can decide. Deborah Hurley says, I hate my equipment. Exactly. But remember what it took to get all that stuff, and then you look up one day and you're like, oh, I'm sad. We have so many different things to do, and this looks like a fun place to be and everything. But these things, they are getting daily battering by these children, right? Not to mention the weather. And so over time, these things in your business, just like any other business, need to be replaced, just like anything in your home. I can't even tell you how old my refrigerator is. I'm not going to say that out loud because I don't want it to die. That would be the worst thing right now. But Deborah Hurley says, I want Head Start playground. Yeah, that would be nice. And by the way, the equipment at Lakeshore and some of these spaces where you can get, or places where you can get equipment for childcares, their stuff is expensive, but it's expensive because it's usually well made and it can withstand the test of time. So you're not, even their bookcases and whatnot, we can get a bookcase from Target, but that bookcase is not going to last as long as a bookcase that you get from Lakeshore. It just isn't. But anyway, I digress. We are at the end of the show. So I just want to tell you this question comes up about, onboarding staff and retaining staff. And this needed to be talked about. And it continues to need to be talked about, because that was my dog. Because if we are trying to retain staff and we are constantly looking for staff and we're saying we can't find good people and how much we have to pay them and this and that, but the reality is, for most of us, we can't run our business without having a staff member. And in California, you have to have an additional person or an assistant at, correct me if I'm wrong, Denitra, but I think it's that 7th child. For me, it was the 5th child. I couldn't do it all after that. Maybe in the beginning, but not anymore. But no. So you're going to need, if you're going to expand, if you're going to get that larger license, at least here in California, or if you're going to have a child care center, or if you have a child, you need staff. So you need to take care of your staff, because you need them to represent your business, to keep your clients happy, to take care of the children. You need them. Okay? So you need to take your responsibility as their employer seriously. Okay? It is an investment in your business. In your business. So I will come back and I'll leave that resource. I highly encourage you guys to check it out, because it can just be a stress reliever and give you so much freedom in your business when you have that reserve. Okay. Last couple comments. Deborah Hurley says, there is a place where they can finance playground and daycare stuff. I got to go do that. Yeah. And she said, thanks for covering this issue. It made me think. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Because, like I said, you don't always think of these things until you get in these situations. But that's what I want this show to be about, is to bring these issues out, and let's discuss them, and let's figure out some strategies, and let's understand some things that maybe we couldn't see before. Because I know the further I get away from things, the further my remembrance of what it was like in that moment. You know what I mean? But I'm gonna go before I start coughing again. Thank you guys so much for joining me for the Daycare Q&A Show. I am so glad to be back live. We will be here again next Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard, 1 o'clock Eastern. But if you have a question, you don't have to wait. You can go leave a question at, before I start coughing again, you can go leave your question at thrivingchildcare.com/what's your question. That's thrivingchildcare.com/what's your question. Leave your question there, and I will address it on next week's episode. And again, thanks for joining me. My name is Adrienne Bradley. I am your host for the Daycare Q&A Show, and thanks for putting up with my coughing today. And I will see you next week. I can't wait to tell you big news coming next week. Big news. So be sure to come back. Okay? All right. Have a great rest of your week, and I will see you next Wednesday. Bye-bye.